5 things that I want to see in Phandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Doyle at the Verdigris Table, and I'm excited because the new adventure drops today. Now personally, I actually haven't bought anything Dungeons & Dragons wise from Wizards of the Coast in over a year. As hard as that is to believe, it's true. They haven't sent me a single thing for free. Can you believe it? But seriously, I picked up plenty of third-party material in the past year, but Fizzbands or the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle was the last WotC thing I got. But today I'm getting Phandelver and Below the Lost Obelisk. I pre-ordered that baby because, as most of you know, I am a huge fan of Fandolin, and we are going back. Now, part of me is thinking I shouldn't get too excited because of, well, for a lot of reasons that we don't need to rehash right now, but I decided to shed my cynicism for a day at least, and I'm allowing myself to get my hopes up, and I actually encourage you to do the same, at least for a minute, because here's what's awesome about D&D, something we proved earlier this year when it was feeling like things were going pretty hard in the opposite direction. This is our game, and we can make it whatever we want. So while this video might just turn out to be a list of things, I find missing from the book I just paid $60 for, even if that turns out to be the case, it can serve as a list of things I want to put into my version of this adventure for my home game. Because unlike a video game or a movie or whatever, that's actually something we get to do with TTRPGs. So I encourage you to think for a second, and in the comments below, let us know, what are you hoping for out of this adventure? You might not get it, of course, but it's a great exercise because you can create it for yourself, and your comment might inspire someone else to create their own version of that as well. I'm serious. Please pause this and leave a comment. If I say something later in this that you want to respond to or sparks another idea, just leave another comment. Hey, it's good for the algorithm. But I think it's good for all of us to imagine our own personalized, ideal version of this adventure before we get the official version, because even if it really does not match our expectations, we can take what we get and add what we wanted. So without further ado, I'm going to go over the 5 things I'm hoping to find in the pages of Phandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. Number 1, an actual remaster of the original Lost Mine of Phandelver, which makes up the first 76 of the 200 pages in this new book. Now, I'm putting this first because I'm prepared to be disappointed and have made my peace that the first third of this book is material that I've already bought, twice in fact. There are some specific things I'd like to see, but I'm making them their own point because even if I get all of them, I don't know if it will be enough to make it feel satisfying to be buying all of this again. It's a decision we're all going to have to be making when the new core books start coming out. So yeah, I hope they make it worth it. Number 2, I hope they make us feel more connected to Fandolin. I want the players to really care about this town if we're going to stay here through level 12 and be asked to defend it. Now, there's plenty of ways to get there, more NPC development, downtime activities, better use of that faction system they introduced and didn't do much with. Now, I'm not expecting too much on this one either, but again, I'll be all right if I don't get that much because I am building a tool that will help me and you make the player characters feel super connected to the world they are adventuring in. The Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation is going to be awesome for this, and I'll be using it to prep if I run this one. If you don't know what the GM's Compendium is, where have you been? It's going to be chock full of ways to make interesting, dynamic characters with deep connections to the stories we're telling, with a ton of magic items and plot hooks, NPCs, a ton of other stuff you can add to or adapt for pretty much any adventure, published or homebrew. This will be launching on Kickstarter, being fulfilled by DriveThruRPG. Links in the description. Check it out. The third thing I'm hoping to get out of at least the new material in Phandelver and Below is strong cosmic horror vibes. They've been saying this is the theme for a while now, and I'm hoping that they really did it right. And this is probably the one that I am the most hopeful for. First, because it feels like it's going to be like make or break for this adventure if it's going to be memorable. But also having done a little sneak peeking, I don't want the Pinkertons coming after anybody, but if you looked around, you could find some like monsters and locations and art that look very promising on this front. I'm sure there will be room to add more, but come on, give me that Lovecraftian high strangeness and crank it to 11. On that note, maybe turn it up slowly though, because the fourth thing I'm looking for is that the Lost Mine of Phandelver still feels relevant and connected to this new stuff. I think a lot of groups out there started here, and there's people out there going back to old characters or even old friends after almost a decade. I can't be the only one who really wants them to stick the landing here. And there's reasons to hope, because this isn't just a sequel. They've reworked that whole intro, right? But as we know, remasters don't always please everybody. Han shot first. So I really hope they didn't break what works and inserted relevant foreshadowing and hooks, etc. So it's not just like a hard turn after Wave Echo Cave or whatever. My number 5 is Psionics done cool. One way they seem to be introducing the later themes earlier in this adventure is with the psionic goblins. We always want interesting monsters, right? That's kind of built in, though we don't always get them, but I'm not including that as its own point here. But what I am hopeful for in the Shattered Obelisk is that psionics end up feeling distinct from magic, at least a little bit, please. Sure, the goblin hitting you with a rocket hurled with its mind is going to mechanically be a lot like them shooting you with an arrow, but as things progress and we get mind flayers and powers from the far realms, I hope we get just some good flavor out of it. Perhaps even some player abilities, but that's almost definitely expecting too much. Again, these are my hopes, and my money is on the distinctions falling on the Dungeon Master's descriptions as much as anything. Number 6, I know I said 5 things, but this is show business, baby, and you need an encore. The bonus thing I want to see from this adventure that potentially represents like the culmination of D&D 5e and potentially our lead into whatever is actually coming next. Actual stakes. Show us the player character's actions affecting the world and show us what's happening if they don't act. And maybe make it so that a nap doesn't magically fix everything when they nearly get killed by an eldritch aberration. If this is cosmic horror, if we're going to Lovecraft country, then please bring on the madness. Are we going to get a new mechanic here? The smart money's on no, but managing your character's sanity because they are dealing with things they can barely comprehend, let alone, easily defeat in 18 seconds of combat, is a big part of Call of Cthulhu. Now, I know 5e is not that, but we have talked about how there is a little known set of tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide for madness when we did our video on hidden gems of the DMG. Did I get your hopes up at all? Did you get any ideas for what you want out of this adventure? Even if you're going to have to do it yourself, please let us know down in those comments. And while you're down there, you hit some of those buttons that tell the algorithmic overlords I have served them satisfactorily. By the time you are watching this, I probably have already read at least most of this adventure, and I will do a deeper review type thing soon, I promise. If it's even remotely good, I'm almost definitely running this for at least one of my groups, and maybe we'll do a guide like we did for Lost Mines of Phandelver once I know it backwards and forwards. Here's hoping. Be kind, have fun.